Temperatures in San Diego are going to cool down and our homes are going to heat up. So our next guest is here to discuss how we can prepare for the winter.
I have a lot of great information today about fire safety and how to protect yourself and what to watch out for, especially with regards to heating systems.
Please welcome the owner of the real estate inspection company, Philippe Heller.
There he is, Mr. Philippe Heller. How you doing, brother?
Always glad to be here.
Great to have you. Very popular segments that you've been doing on the show. We appreciate all of your insight and input. People really like this stuff. It's practical, usable stuff in your everyday life that most people don't think about. Today we're talking about the unheard of, the mystical San Diego winter.
Right.
Which, we don't think about it much in San Diego. It's 75 and sunny every day. And even in the winter, December, it's still nice out.
Right.
But it gets a lot cooler in the evenings. It gets cold. It does get cold. Maybe I'm a wuss now, but it gets cold. So people use things like space heaters, fireplaces, stuff like that. Today you've got some tips for us on that stuff.
Yeah, in doing the research, even I was surprised by some of the findings. I went to the NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, and they compiled data over the years of fires and what causes them and all sorts of different aspects of fires. And I was surprised by some of the findings, even though I've been in home inspection business for over 12 years and I've seen a lot of stuff. And you're exactly right. In San Diego, we have a different perception. Our winters are really short. Nobody ever sweeps their chimney. Nobody thinks about their water heater or their fireplace as a possible fire hazard. And we just use them. We expect them to work when we turn them on, and they can be a big source of fires in the winter.
Right. So what are some of the things that, there's other things that cause fires. There's furnace fires too. Furnaces. There was a big recall, wasn't there, on furnaces?
Exactly, yes. A huge recall in the 80s, and we can talk about this for a whole show if we wanted to, but the summary is that in the late 70s, there was a big push to have furnaces burn cleaner. And so a company called Consolidated Industries made a furnace that had these little rods in them called NOx rods that were to act like a catalytic converter in the car. When they heated up, they reduced the nitrous oxide, and it was supposed to have cleaner emissions. The problem is those little bars that were right above the flame would become very brittle over time, just like an old barbecue grill. And eventually they started breaking off and dropping through the bottom of the furnace and setting houses on fire. So it's very important if you have a house that was built between, let's say, 83 and 1994, to have your furnace checked and make sure if you have a horizontal furnace up in the attic, make sure that it wasn't one of these recalled furnaces, which is a huge fire hazard.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about what is actually causing the fires out there. I think you also said that space heaters are a big deal when it comes to house fires.
Yeah, believe it or not, the number one source of house fires is cooking. People walk away from a pot, they forget about it, they go walk the dog, they're cooking something and it boils down, or they heat up some oil because they want to fry some, something for dinner, and they forget about it while it's heating up. And it overheats and can catch on fire, or a lot of people still make the mistake, and you see this every year at Thanksgiving with those huge turkey fryers, where somebody tries to put something that's frozen into a pot of hot oil. And what happens is the water turns to steam, and when water turns to steam, it increases 1,600 times. 1,600 times. That's why water heaters can explode if they don't have a proper release on it. But people put a frozen piece of food in, or a whole turkey in a pot of hot oil, and it immediately, all the moisture expands and pushes that oil out, and when it hits the flame, it can catch on fire. And the number one cause of fires in a house is cooking. Number two is heating equipment, whether it's your furnace, whether it is your fireplace, even a water heater is considered heating equipment. But the number one source of fires when you just consider heating equipment is a space heater. Little electric space heaters like this cause the most fires when people are trying to heat their house.
And how does that happen? Is it just because they're putting it too close to the couch, or is it an actual electrical issue because there's so much drain on the electricity?
Yep, excellent point. Mostly because people put it too close to combustibles, whether it's curtains, whether it's near a bed, a pile of clothing, people put it in there. And the problem is people kind of rely on these to heat a big area, and they're not really intended to heat a big area. What happens when you do that is it never turns off. And the constant electrical draw will overheat the wires. So a lot of the fires are caused by setting something on fire that's combustible in front of the heater, but very often it's, especially with older electrical systems, the wires overheat and it causes an electrical fire.
Very interesting. Now, when we are using furnaces, fireplaces, things like that, I've heard that it might increase. We need to check our smoke detectors first of all.
Yes.
To make sure if we're going to be using these things, we're going to create fires, controlled fires in the house. We should probably check the smoke detectors, right?
It's a good idea, of course. And starting in the 80s, when smoke detectors became a required item in a house, since that time, a lot of people are resistant to putting smoke alarms or smoke detectors in a house. They just think, oh, it's government regulation, and I agree, it's our home, and get out of my, don't tell me what to do. But just like your car has a lot more safety features than they used to, smoke detectors do work, and the proof is in the statistics. And I did the research for you, and if anybody's interested in doing this research, we'll post a link on our website at sdinspect.com so you can pull these reports out. We'll link to these. But the deaths from house fires has dropped to less than half of what it used to be in the 80s, and a lot of that is attributed to the fact that there are smoke alarms, which allow people to be alerted to the fire and get out of the house in time to save their life.
Yeah, so if you're going to be starting fires in the house, or if you're going to be using heating elements in the house, really anytime, double check your smoke detectors, but especially before that season comes around.
Yep, and there's two things to think about. Most fires in a house from this kind of stuff, the biggest months for that are December, January, and February, when it's cold, and equipment that hasn't been cleaned, it's been sitting around, there's soot, soil, dust, dirty filters. That's when we have the most fires from heating equipment. And then also in the evening hours and first thing in the morning, that's when most fires occur, because that's when people are either turning on the heat at night before they go to bed or when they first get up. So you want to make sure that all this equipment is clean as we move into winter, make sure it's in good working order, and you'll reduce the risk. And then again, make sure your smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors are in good working order so that you and your children, if you have children in the house, have a better chance to survive if a fire should start in the house.
Brought another prop in here today.
Yes.
An important one. We're talking about fire here. The first line of defense.
That's right. You are the first line of defense in protecting your house. And if you do have a kitchen fire, for example, or any fire in the house, you smell smoke, you have a fire in the fireplace and a log rolls out onto the carpet, you need to be prepared to act even before you call 911, because depending on where you live, that could be 10 minutes before somebody shows up. And by that time, your house can be fully engulfed in flames. Get a fire extinguisher. They're inexpensive, super easy to use. Pull that pin, even a child can use them. And it's a great way to get control while the fire is still small, because once it starts to spread, your house is probably going to be a loss.
I would say right now, if you don't know where your fire extinguisher is, like you know you have one, if you can't tell me exactly where it is, figure that out today.
Or if it's a few years old. Don't just rely on this little meter here, because they get stuck, and especially on the residential units, this isn't commercial, they're not as good. I would say if it's more than 2 or 3 years old, go ahead and buy another one. You're not required in a house to have your fire extinguishers checked like a commercial location. Those have to be checked every couple of years. Your home one may be dead. Just go buy a new one. You know, they're usually $20 or so. Go buy a few, spread them around the house, keep them accessible, and it's really a wise thing to do.
Great stuff. Let's go to the exterior. I know you have strong feelings about gutters.
Yes.
As an inspector, you guys inspect hundreds of homes every month, and you've seen everything that you can possibly see. I follow you on Facebook, so I see the photos. Tell me about gutters, what people need to do with those.
Well, in my opinion, it should be in the building code. I think even in California that rain gutters should be required, and they're not. And we have very little rain, relatively to the rest of the country. But when we do, it seems to be concentrated, and we get a heavy runoff. And what rain gutters do is they take all that water that collects on your roof, that big area of your roof, and concentrates right next to your house. That water pours down. If you have a 2-story house, it's exacerbated because it really splashes back on your house. If you have a raised foundation, all that water can collect and make its way under your house. Rain gutters are inexpensive to put in, relatively. Usually a few hundred, maybe $1,000 for a house. Put in a good set of custom rain gutters, not cheap ones that you buy and kind of piece together. And what it does is it collects that water and directs it away from your house. And it can protect your French doors, the wood trim on the side of your house, and the crawl space if you have one, and keep the water out.
You know, something I don't even notice, I think most people probably don't even notice looking at other people's homes. Like, so you're telling me there's a lot of houses out there that don't have rain gutters?
Oh, tons, yeah.
That's unbelievable.
I would estimate that probably more houses don't have rain gutters in California than those that do have rain gutters. And remember, if you have any trees, they get clogged. You need to get them cleaned. If you're not comfortable doing that, getting up on a ladder, there are contractors who'll go out and clean rain gutters, and now's the time to do it before the heavy rains.
Wow. That's amazing to me, because you really think about it's such a simple device that can do so much good for you. I mean, you definitely do not want all that water piling up right up against your house.
Correct.
Nothing good can come from that.
Correct.
Wow. So let's talk about the roof then too, because this is something that comes up a lot, too, especially when it starts raining, which it's recently rained quite a bit.
Yes.
And people start to notice things. Oh, there's a little leak, or there's a little this, little that. What should people be looking at for roofs this winter?
Well, again, if you have any trees around your house that are hanging over your house, you may want to consider having the branches trimmed back, and for a couple reasons. One is you never want the branches to rub against the roofing material from the wind, because that will eventually wear out your roof, especially if you have an asphalt shingle roof or something like that. But also, it's the number one way that rodents can get up on your roof, and raccoons and whatnot, and they crawl up and they get on your roof, and you don't want that. But in regards to winter, you want to just take a visual look at your roof, do the math. We have other articles on our blogs about the age of a roof. How old is your roof? When do you need to get it replaced? You know, it's different if you have a tile roof versus an asphalt shingle roof, and there are different quality of asphalt shingle roof. So it's important to know the age of that and when you should consider having it repaired or even replaced.
Okay, so know the age of your roof.
Clean it.
Clean it, take a look at it. If you have trees that are, overhanging or touching the roof especially, look to make a change there, or make some trimming. Do a little trim job. I like the idea of just keeping the rodents off the house, because they're going to smell food.
Yep.
So,
or just look for a dry place to stay for the winter, just like we do. They like a nice warm house.
They do the same
thing.
thing.
They'll go right in your attic.
Philippe, thank you so much for your time today again, my friend.
Always.
Amazing stuff. Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else, commercial free.